The salt-laced spray stung Eva Rostova's face as she stood on the bridge of the Argonaut, the research vessel slicing through the inky waters of the Pacific. The ship, a marvel of modern engineering, hummed with the low thrum of powerful engines and the subtle clicks and whirs of sophisticated scientific equipment. Eva, a woman carved from the same granite as the cliffs she'd climbed in her youth, scanned the horizon, her gaze unwavering despite the relentless assault of the elements. Years at sea had etched themselves onto her face, deep lines around her eyes, a permanent tan that spoke of sun and wind, and an air of quiet authority that commanded respect. She was a seasoned oceanographer, a veteran of countless expeditions, but this one felt different. This one, the descent into the Mariana Trench, the deepest scar on the face of the planet, prickled with an unnerving sense of anticipation. The mission was ostensibly about seismic activity. Over the past few months, unusual readings had been emanating from the Challenger Deep, the trench's lowest point. Subsurface tremors, unlike anything recorded before, rippled through the Earth's crust, hinting at forces unknown, energies that defied explanation. Officially, they were there to monitor and analyze these tremors, to understand their source and assess their potential impact. But Eva suspected there was more to it than that. She'd seen the classified briefing, the hushed tones, the nervous glances. Something was down there, something that had caught the attention of powers far beyond the realm of scientific curiosity. Beside her, Dr. Jian Li, a wary man with intense eyes and a perpetual air of nervous energy, adjusted the readings on a complex array of monitors. Jian was a prodigy in marine biology, his understanding of the ocean's intricate ecosystems bordering on the intuitive. He was brilliant, undoubtedly, but also prone to flights of fancy, his mind often lost in the labyrinthine depths of theoretical biology. To Eva, he was a necessary, if sometimes exasperating, component of the team. "Readings are stable," Captain Jian announced, his voice tinged with a barely concealed excitement. "Seismic activity remains consistent with the previous reports." Eva nodded, her gaze returning to the turbulent waters ahead. "Anything unusual, Jian?" He hesitated, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. "There's a persistent anomaly in the hydroacoustic data, a low-frequency hum almost subliminal. It's faint, but it's there, a hum." Eva frowned. "Could be anything. Engine noise, interference from other vessels." "It's not that," Captain Jian insisted, shaking his head. "It's organic. Or at least, it mimics organic patterns. It's almost vocal." Eva allowed herself a sliver of skepticism. Jian's organic patterns had previously turned out to be everything from whale song to the creaking of tectonic plates. "Let's not jump to conclusions, Jian. Run a diagnostic. Check for equipment malfunction." Jian conceded with a shrug, but his eyes remained fixed on the screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Of course, Captain." Further back on the bridge, Ben Carter, the ship's sonar specialist, was hunched over his console, his face illuminated by the ghostly glow of sonar displays. Ben was a quiet, unassuming man, but his expertise in acoustics was unparalleled. He was a master of filtering noise, isolating signals, and interpreting the subtle language of the ocean. If anyone could identify the source of the hum, it was him. "Ben, what's your take on the hydroacoustic anomaly?" Eva asked, turning her attention to him. Ben looked up, his expression troubled. "I'm picking it up too, Captain. A low-frequency drone, it's unsettling. I've never heard anything quite like it." "Unsettling how?" Eva pressed, her unease growing. "It's hard to explain," Ben replied, his voice hesitant. "It's like a whisper. But it's coming from the seabed, from the deepest part of the trench, and it seems to be intensifying." The word whisper hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Eva dismissed it mentally, telling herself it was just the pressure of the situation, the psychological weight of descending into the unknown. But a seed of doubt had been planted, a nagging feeling that something was profoundly wrong. Could be a new species of bioluminescent fish communicating, or the sounds of the vents. Eva proposed as she clenched her jaw. "We are miles from the nearest vent, and there is no bioluminescent feedback through the visual feed." Jian butted and Eva sighed. "Okay, so you both agree with my assessment?" The trio nodded. Over the next few hours, the whispers persisted, growing steadily louder, more insistent. Eva and her team ran every diagnostic imaginable, checked every connection, calibrated every sensor. But the hum remained, an unshakable presence in the depths. The crew began to murmur amongst themselves, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Some whispered about sea monsters, ancient leviathans slumbering in the abyss. Others spoke of geological phenomena, of tectonic forces unleashed by the crushing pressure of the deep. Eva, ever the pragmatist, dismissed these theories as superstitious nonsense. But even she couldn't deny the growing sense of unease that permeated the ship. The whispers were getting into her head, worming their way into her thoughts, filling her with a nameless dread. She found herself staring out at the ocean, at the endless expanse of black water that stretched out to the horizon. The surface was deceptively calm, but beneath it lay a world of unimaginable pressure, a world of perpetual darkness, a world that had remained largely unexplored by humankind. What secrets did it hold? What horrors lurked in its depths? As the Argonaut sailed deeper into the heart of the Mariana Trench, Eva Rostova knew that she was about to find out. The whispers were calling, and she had a sinking feeling that they wouldn't like what she found. Her logical mind fought against the superstitious dread, yet it was a losing battle. Deep inside, something primal was awakening, a recognition that the ocean was not just a body of water, but a living, breathing entity, one with secrets older than time itself. The deployment of the submersible was a ballad of practiced precision, a stark contrast to the gnawing anxiety that chewed at Eva's insides. She double-checked the seals on her pressure suit, the familiar hiss of oxygen a small comfort against the vast, unknown darkness that awaited. Beside her, Jianli, usually a fountain of excited chatter, was uncharacteristically quiet, his gaze fixed on the churning waves where the submersible, the Triton, bobbed like a metallic cork. Ben Carter, his face pale under the floodlights, gave them a thumbs up from the control room window. All systems nominal, Captain. Good hunting, folks. Eva returned the gesture, forcing a smile. We'll be back with souvenirs, Ben. Just try not to miss us too much. She felt the familiar lurch as the Triton was lowered into the inky black, the Argonaut shrinking above them, becoming a distant beacon in the encroaching void. The descent began smoothly. For the first few hundred meters, the familiar world of the upper ocean clung to them. Sunlight, fractured and weak, still penetrated, illuminating swarms of plankton and the occasional darting fish. Jian, regaining some of his earlier enthusiasm, pointed out a particularly striking siphonophore, its bioluminescent tendrils shimmering like living jewels. But as they plunged deeper, the light faded, the pressure mounted, and the world outside the Triton's reinforced viewport transformed into something alien and unsettling. Atmospherics holding steady, Eva announced, her voice calm and professional, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Depth, 500 meters. Commencing deep sea lighting. With a flick of a switch, the Triton's powerful external lights pierced the darkness, revealing a landscape unlike anything they had ever imagined. Gone were the familiar blues and greens of the upper ocean. Instead, they were surrounded by a monochrome world of deepest black, punctuated by the eerie, ethereal glow of bioluminescent life. Creatures drifted past the viewport, their forms defying easy categorization. Jellyfish the size of small cars, pulsed with an inner light, their trailing tentacles leaving shimmering trails in the water. Fish with enormous, luminous eyes stared back at them, their bodies grotesque and elongated, adapted to the crushing pressure and perpetual darkness. There were things that defied description, gelatinous blobs that pulsed with rainbow light, serpentine creatures that swam in impossible contortions, and organisms that seemed to be both plant and animal, their fronds glowing with an unearthly radiance. Incredible, John breathed, his face pressed against the viewport. I've never seen anything like it. This is beyond textbook definition. He began rattling off Latin names, attempting to classify the creatures, but quickly gave up, overwhelmed by the sheer diversity and strangeness of what they were witnessing. Eva, however, felt a growing sense of unease. The beauty of the bioluminescence couldn't mask the inherent strangeness of this world, a world that seemed to exist outside the normal laws of nature. The whispers, too, were becoming more pronounced. They were no longer a faint, background static, but a distinct murmur, a chorus of voices just beyond the threshold of comprehension. Did you hear that, John? She asked, her voice tight. Jian paused, his gaze still fixed on a particularly bizarre-looking anglerfish. Hear what, Eva? Just the usual creaks and groans of the submersible, and maybe a little bit of me freaking out about all the awesome creatures. No, the whispers, Eva insisted. The ones we picked up on the hydrophones. They're getting louder. Jian listened intently for a moment, then shook his head. I don't hear anything, Eva. Maybe it's just your imagination. The pressure can do strange things to your mind, you know. Eva frowned. She knew that decompression sickness and nitrogen narcosis were real dangers at these depths, but she was certain of what she was hearing. The whispers were there, a constant, unsettling presence that resonated deep within her bones. She adjusted the submersible's audio system, amplifying the signal from the external hydrophones. The whispers became clearer, more distinct. They were no longer random static, but seemed to coalesce into something resembling language. It was a language unlike anything she had ever heard, a guttural, ululating tongue that seemed to vibrate the very water around them. The sounds were alien and disturbing, yet somehow familiar. Now do you hear them? Eva asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jian's eyes widened. He slowly turned from the viewport, his face pale and drawn. Yes, he said, his voice trembling. I hear them. What are they saying? Eva strained to understand the alien sounds, but they remained just beyond her grasp. They were like half-remembered dreams, fleeting glimpses of something ancient and unknowable. The pressure continued to increase, both physically and psychologically. The Triton's hull creaked and groaned under the immense weight of the water, and Eva felt a growing sense of claustrophobia, a feeling of being trapped in a metal coffin, hurtling towards an unknown abyss. Depth 8,000 meters, she announced, her voice strained. Pressure holding steady. Prepare for further descent. The submersible continued its inexorable plunge into the darkness. The bioluminescent creatures became more sparse, replaced by a desolate landscape of black volcanic rock and fine, silty sediment. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, seeming to echo inside Eva's own head. She felt a growing sense of dread, a primal fear that resonated deep within her soul. She glanced at Jian, who was now staring blankly ahead, his eyes wide and unblinking. He seemed to be in a trance, completely oblivious to his surroundings. Jian, she asked, gently shaking his arm. Jian, are you all right? He didn't respond, his gaze fixed on something beyond the viewport, something that Eva couldn't see.